Dear friends, English literature, romantic poetry, William Blake selected poems from Songs of Innocence. Introduction, brief questions with answers. Question 1. When and where was William Blake born? Answer. William Blake was born in 1757 in London and died in 1827. Question 2. Name some of the works of William Blake. Answer. Poetical Sketches, Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience, The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, The First Book of Eurigen, Milton, etc. Question 3. What type of poet is William Blake? Answer. William Blake is one of the pre-romantic poets. Question 4. Who are the pre-romantic poets? Answer. The poets in the later half of the 18th century who represent the chief traits of both the pseudo-classicism and romanticism are known as pre-romantics. Question 5. Who is the romantic precursor in English poetry? Answer. William Blake is the romantic precursor in English poetry. Question 6. Why is Blake considered as the romantic precursor? Answer. He is considered as the romantic precursor because with him we are on a very threshold of the romantic era. Question 7. What is romanticism? Answer. Romanticism denotes a kind of literature that tries to convey the feelings and experience of the writer in a manner different from the traditional formal pattern. Question 8. What romantic qualities are found in the poetry of Blake? Answer. His romanticism is seen in the imagination, mysticism, symbolism, love of liberty, humanitarian sympathies, idealization of childhood, pastoral setting, and lyricism. Question 9. What romantic quality does Blake lack? Answer. He lacks the romantic quality, nostalgia. Question 10. What is Blake's poetic theory? Answer. His poetic theory is that poetry is to reveal the universal truth by the way of poet's imagination. Question 11. What is a mystic? Answer. A mystic is a person who seeks union with God and believes in spiritual apprehension of truths inaccessible to understanding. Question 12. What is a mystic poet? Answer. A mystic poet is one who reveals in his poetry soul's relationship with God and analyzes the states of soul and man's predicament in this earth and beyond. Question 13. In what sense is Blake a mystic poet? Answer. Blake is a mystic poet in the sense that in his poetry he analyzes the present state of soul and stresses on the need of salvation. Question 14. In which field is Blake the greatest? Answer. He is the greatest visionary poet. Question 15. Cite an example of Blake's childhood vision. Answer. It has been recorded that at the age of 4 he beheld God's head at a window. Once when he was about 7 years old, he told his parents that he had seen a tree full of angels. Question 16. What is nature to Blake? Answer. All nature for Blake is a fire with God. She is for him a window of God. Question 17. Name the two groups of poems William Blake has written. Answer. The two groups of poems William Blake has written are Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience. Question 18. What are the Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience? Answer. Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience are a collection of lyrics in which there are many pairs of poems, each depicting a different mood. Question 19. What is the difference between Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience? Answer. The Songs of Innocence sets out a vision of the state of innocence, while the songs of experience shows how experience of life challenges and corrupts it. Question 20. What is Blake's aim of writing Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience? His aim is to show the two contrary states of human soul. Question 21. Why does Blake want to show the two contrary states of human soul in his poetry? Answer: because without contraries, there is no progression. Question 22. What is the mood of the Songs of Innocence? Answer: the mood of the Songs of Innocence is joyful and childlike. Question 23. What does Blake celebrate in his Songs of Innocence? Answer: Songs of Innocence celebrates man's happy state when he is like a child uncorrupted by hypocrisy. Question 24. What type of symbols are used in Songs of Innocence and of Experience? In Songs of Innocence and of Experience are used innocence symbols, energy symbols, corruption symbols, and oppression symbols. Question 25. From where does Blake draw his symbols in Songs of Innocence? Answer: in Songs of Innocence, the symbols are largely drawn from the Bible. Question 26. What is introduction to Songs of Innocence in the nature? Answer: introduction is in the nature of a preface to Songs of Innocence. Question 27. How is the setting of the poem Introduction to Songs of Innocence? Answer: the setting of the poem is rural pastoral. Question 28. What conventional figures of innocence are introduced in Introduction to Songs of Innocence? Answer: the poem introduces us to conventional figures of innocence, a shepherd with his pipe and a child in a rural setting. Question 29. Who is the piper referred to in the Introduction to Songs of Innocence? The piper referred to in this poem is the poet Blake himself. Question 30. What did the poet do while wandering through the valleys? Answer: he was piping songs of joy on his pipe while wandering through the valleys. Question 31. What did the poet see in his vision while piping songs of joy on his pipe? Answer: in his vision he saw a child on a cloud while piping songs of joy on his pipe. Question 32. What kind of child did the poet see on a cloud? Answer: the poet saw a mystic child on a cloud. Question 33. What does the child on a cloud represent? The child may refer to Jesus Christ, who speaks from a cloud, heaven, or it may be an angel representing innocence. Question 34. What did the child ask the poet for the first time? Answer: the child on a cloud asks the poet to pipe a song about a lamp for the first time. Question 35. What does the lamp symbolize? Answer: the lamp symbolizes innocence and Christ. Question 36. Why did the child on a cloud weep for the first time? Answer: the visionary child wept for the first time, being overcome by excessive joy to hear the poet's piping songs of joy. Question 37. Why did the visionary child ask the poet to stop piping songs of joy? Answer: the child asked the poet to stop piping songs of joy in order to ask him to sing the songs of joy vocally. Question 38. What did the visionary child do when the poet sang songs of joy vocally? Answer: when the poet sang songs of joy vocally, the child wept for excessive joy. Question 39. What is the third comment of the visionary child to the poet? Answer: the child's third comment to the poet is to write the songs of joy down in a book. Question 40. What did the child do giving his third comment to the poet? Answer. Giving his third comment to the poet, that the child vanishes from the sight of the poet. Question 41. Why does the child vanish from the sight of the poet? Answer. The child vanishes from the sight of the poet, for he is a vision symbolizing the poet's imagination. Question 42. Why did the poet pluck a hollow reed? Answer. The poet plucked a hollow reed to make a pen to write with. Question 43. Why does the poet call his pen a rural pen? Answer. As the pen is made of a hollow reed, a kind of marshy plant, the poet calls it a rural pen. Question 44. Why does the poet choose a hollow reed to make his pen? Answer. The poet chooses a hollow reed to maintain the rurality or pastoralist of the atmosphere. Question 45. How did the poet make his How did the poet make his ink to write down the songs of joy? Answer. He made his ink by staining clear water of his stream. Question 46. How does the poet write his songs of joy? Answer. He writes his songs of joy with a pen of hollow reed and clear water of his stream stained to make it into ink. Question 47. Why does the poet write his songs of joy? Answer. He writes his songs of joy so that all may read and every child may get access of joy to hear them. Question 48. What comments did the child give to the poet? Answer. The child comments the poet 3 times. The child comments the poet to pipe, to sing, and to write down the songs of joy. Question 49. How many times did the child weep? Answer. The child wept 2 times. First hearing the piping and next listening to the songs of joy. Question 50. How does the poet represent himself in the poem? Answer. He represents himself as a shepherd boy carrying a shepherd's pipe. Thank you friends for watching my video.